Hello everybody, I'm Kat the Vet. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and do subscribe if you want to see more like it or check out my back catalogue. Today we're going to discuss the flat-faced dogs, the brachycephalic breeds, and the problems that they can have. I'm going to start off by saying this isn't an anti-flat-faced breed rant. I know that you love your dogs, and I love your dogs as well, but they do have a lot of problems and we have to make some changes to make their lives easier. And that is what this video is all about, explaining why it is that they struggle, letting you know the proof that we have, that we know that they're struggling, and also what can we do about it? How can we help them? How can we make some changes? I think this is an issue that is getting a lot of publicity at the moment. There's lots in the news and online about the flat-faced dogs, and I'm really pleased about that because I really want people to know about those problems so you can make informed choices if you're thinking about buying one, or if you already own one already, you're more prepared to maybe recognise when they are struggling. There has also been a massive increase in their popularity in the past few years, and so we're seeing a lot more of these dogs, which I think is why maybe the spotlight is shining on them. Before we get going, one of the criticisms that I often hear and see online from people who own or breed or love these dogs is, why are you picking on the flat-faced dogs? They're not the only breed with problems, you know. There's lots of other breeds with issues, and that you're absolutely right. You know, we're not ignoring the Labradors and their hips, or the German Shepherds and their backs, or the Cavalier King-Charles Spaniels and their problems with their heart. But there is a difference with the flat-faced breeds. First of all, there are so many of them now. In the last 10 years, the English Bulldog has increased in popularity by 200%, the Pug by 300%, and the French Bulldog by a massive 3,000%. They are about to overtake the Labrador as the most registered breed with the Kennel Club in the UK, and the Labrador has been the #1 dog forever. So the numbers of these dogs are just skyrocketing, and that means that the numbers of dogs that are struggling are also really, really high. So if we can get some attention on this issue, we have the potential to change the welfare and lives of thousands and thousands of dogs in this country and potentially all over the world. The other point to make is, whereas a lot of the other breeds do have problems, it's rare that it strikes them early in life. They generally have quite a significant period of time being disease-free or pain-free before they start to struggle. And we've got a lot of medication that can help them. It's no reason not to concentrate on them, I completely agree, but that's the issue, is they don't struggle all the time. Whereas with the flat-faced dogs, because of the way that they literally are born, a lot of them struggle from a very early age. Not all of them, a lot of them though, and it generally gets worse as they get older. And there is no medication that can make them better. I can't give your dog a tablet to help them breathe more easily, so we have to do surgery. So it's a much more significant intervention that we need to make. The other point I'd like to make is, this video is mainly going to concentrate on the problems that they have breathing, because it's the biggest issue, I think, in the breed, and also it's the biggest problem for the dogs themselves. You know, we should be producing animals that are able to breathe freely. It should be a prerequisite of life. Of course it is, of course it should. And it's their biggest issue. It's not the only issue they have. I'm going to touch very briefly on the others as well, but we're mainly going to concentrate on the struggles they have to breathe, why that is, how we know that they do, because there's recently been some very good scientific testing to prove that they struggle, and what we can do about it, which is the most important point here. Is I don't want to ban these breeds, I don't want to get rid of these dogs, but I do want to help them, and I hope by the end of this video you will too. So let's start with why they struggle. What is it about these dogs that causes them problems? And what we're going to do is we're going to start from the outside and we're going to work in, and we're going to discuss, unfortunately, all the problems that they have. So the first off is the shape of the skull, the shape of their heads. And I think the easiest way to look at it is to compare a long-nosed dog, a more normal-looking dog, with the shape of a skull of a flat-faced breed. And you can see instantly, once you take away those cute big eyes and all those facial chubby cheeks and everything, I think you can just see how problematic it is, when, you know, how deformed they are. And the important point, which we're going to go on to, is that although the skull is shorter, although the nose has been completely chopped off these dogs, everything on the inside is more or less the same. So there's the same amount of tissue crammed into that tiny space as there is in the longer nose. Just look at the teeth, for example. They have a lot of dental problems, these dogs, because all the teeth, they have the same number of teeth, they're all rammed in there, all scrunched in together. So they get an awful lot of problems with those as well. Now, let's move on to the nostrils. Normal dogs have big, wide open nostrils. We call them nares in the veterinary world. But a lot of the flat-faced breeds have very narrowed nostrils. These pictures come from the Brachiocephalic Obstructive Airway Syndrome research team at Cambridge Veterinary School. Thanks very much for letting me use these pictures. And you can see the difference between a really beautiful open nose and the variations in the noses that these dogs have, that the flat-faced dogs have. Do me a favour, just for a sec, pinch your nose like this. So make your nostrils really slitty and then try and breathe. Close your mouth, try and breathe. It is really difficult to breathe, especially when your mouth is shut. And sometimes this is what these dogs are coping with every single day. So now let's go inside the nose. And inside the nose you have something called your nasal turbinates. And they are these elegant, delicate structures of bone through which the air flows and out to the back of the throat. If you compare these scans, this is a CT scan. So in a CT scan, air is black, soft tissue is grey, and bone is white. If you compare these CT scans from a dog with a long nose, and this is a pug, you can see that look at the amount of black in there. That space is for the air to flow. So in these dogs, when the air finally gets through the nostrils, it hits this barrier of tissue that there's no way through. So it has to really struggle, the dog has to really struggle to pull the air in past that blockage, which is why a lot of these dogs preferentially pant, because that's another way of getting the air in, is directly through the mouth. But it's not perfect there either. One of the other big problems they have is with their soft palate. Remember, although the skull is shorter on the outside, there's the same amount of tissue on the inside. The soft palate is the piece at the back of your mouth that sits just gently over your windpipe and means when you swallow your food, it doesn't go down your windpipe and block your airways. In a normal dog, this is just touching, but in brachycephalic dogs, there's often this great big fat lump of tissue sitting right in the way of the windpipe, all scrunched up at the back there because there's no room for it. And of course, if you've got something sitting over the end of your windpipe, you've got to get the air past it, and that's the problem. It blocks the end of the windpipe. So a lot of these dogs breathe like this, and that is the sound of the air being forced past the soft palate at the back. And they have to make an effort. If you, again, make that sound, feel the effort you're making at the back of your throat to tense those muscles. Which brings me on to the final point, the larynx, and something called laryngeal collapse. So the larynx is at the top of your windpipe, it's your voice box, and that is where the soft palate is sitting. And because of the effort a lot of these dogs have to make to force the air in and out, to pull it in and out, that larynx can start to collapse because of the pressures of the air going in and out. Of course, if it collapses, you get even more tissue blocking the top of the windpipe. So we've just got so many barriers. That's the problem with these dogs. The reason they struggle to breathe is because all of the barriers in between the outside where the air is and their lungs where the air needs to be. They also struggle with other problems. Sleep apnea, for example, which is where when they go to sleep, sometimes they literally stop breathing. Because these dogs have to make such an effort to suck that air in past all those barriers, it's fine when they're awake, but when they're asleep and everything is relaxed and those muscles aren't working quite so strongly and there's not so much of a sucking effort, they literally stop breathing. And if you go to YouTube, you will see all these cute videos, and well, people think they're cute, of the dogs like sitting like this and literally falling asleep sitting up. And it's probably because they're so sleep deprived, because every time they fall asleep, they're suffocating, so they have to wake up again. Sleep apnea is a problem in people as well, often if they're very overweight. And people with sleep apnea sleep with huge masks on their faces and massive big machines to help them to breathe while they sleep. And people with the condition say it's really frightening when they fall asleep because they can't breathe. And this is something which our dogs, especially bulldogs, struggle with literally every night of their entire lives. At this point, I'm just going to touch on the other problems that they have. But like I say, we're going to concentrate on breathing. Heat stroke, because dogs can't sweat. So in order to cool down, they pant, and they're pulling the cool air in and they're pushing the hot air out. Because these dogs struggle to pull air in and out, and because their lung capacity is often less than a normal dog, they can overheat really easily, which is why if you have one of these flat-faced dogs, please don't exercise them in hot weather, sometimes even warm weather. Wait till it's cool, because literally they can die from heat stroke. Their faces also give them other issues, particularly in the skin folds. Again, the skull is smaller, but nothing else is. So they've got all this extra skin that's all rolled up onto itself. The breeders call it a nose rope, and actually, apparently, it's quite desirable, particularly in the pug breeds, which is astonishing. And they get a lot of skin infections, because if you've got two bits of skin that are constantly rubbing and sweating on each other, they have loads of infections. And I'm sure you know, if you own one of these dogs, you really have to be very careful to clean in between these facial folds. Sometimes I have them in the tail as well, every day, to make sure they don't get infected. And if they do get infected, it can be really difficult to get rid of that bacteria. And finally, just to touch on the breeding of these dogs, a huge number of these breeds can only give birth by cesarean section because, again, the shape of the head is so wide in the shoulders, the mothers physically cannot push the babies through the birth canal. And if they tried to, they might die. So lots of breeders, lots of people have elective C-sections on these dogs when they're bred. And I think that there just comes a point when you have to stand back and say, if we are breeding dogs who can't give birth naturally, should we be breeding them at all? But I'm going to leave that there today because it's the breathing we're concentrating on. So what about the proof that they're struggling? Well, there's been some great research done at Cambridge Veterinary School by the Brachiocephalic Obstructive Airway Syndrome research team that proves that these dogs have a problem and is able to quantify it. Because one of the things that a lot of people who breed these dogs or who own these dogs say is, oh, my dog's fine, that they don't have a problem. And the issue is actually they probably do, you just don't realise it. And so much of what these dogs do is considered normal. Snoring is normal, panting is normal, gurgly breathing is considered normal. Again, get on YouTube and look at all the videos of people thinking that it's cute. And I think that I can see how people think it's cute. Snoring is cute. But it's not normal, and that's the sound of all that masses of tissue at the back of the throat getting in the way of the air that they need to breathe. So all the things that we think are normal for these breeds, we need to get away from that because it's not normal. It's not normal to struggle to breathe. So at Cambridge, they've done lots of testing. I'm going to link them below. I'm not going to go into what they tested now, but they gave this brachiocephalic obstructive airway syndrome 4 grades: grade 0, 1, 2 and 3. 0 means that there isn't any problems breathing. 1, 2 and 3, it gets gradually worse with the snoring, the noise, the air deprivation. Here are the results. They tested pugs, French bulldogs and English bulldogs, which is why we're covering mainly these breeds today. Pugs, 93% of them were grades 1, 2 or 3. 93% have some effort and struggle to breathe. And nearly 70% were grades 2 and 3. 70% of these dogs have significant breathing problems. French bulldogs, 90%, 1, 2 and 3, and nearly 60%, 2 and 3. 60% of them are struggling to breathe. And English bulldogs, 85% grades 1, 2 and 3, 45% grades 2 and 3. So nearly half of English bulldogs have significant breathing problems. And I think you just have to take a step back and look at those figures and think, wow, these dogs, the vast majority, can't breathe properly. And that, if nothing else, has got to make us think we need to make some changes here. And here's the kicker. They also tested dogs with longer noses and normal face shapes. Guess how many of those were grades 1, 2 or 3? Guess how many of those dogs had trouble breathing? None. 100% of dogs with longer noses were grade 0. And there you see, 100% of long-nosed dogs can breathe. 90% of pugs struggle to some degree. That difference has got to mean that we need to make a difference. Something has to change. We can't carry on producing dogs where the vast majority can't breathe. So what can we do about it? How can we make the changes? Well, I think that first of all, we've got to look at breeders. And again, I'm really sorry. I know a lot of breeders feel very beleaguered, but I think it has to start with you guys. You guys are the ones that are producing the puppies. You guys are the ones who can really make the changes and make such a massive difference to the dogs that you love so much. I think the Kennel Club has got to start making some changes. When you read the breed standards for the show dogs, flat noses are not only desirable, they're actually required in order to win in the show ring. And certainly the flattest faces that I see on these breeds are in the show dogs. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't buy from a Kennel Club registered breeder. A lot of registered breeders are breeding more moderate face shapes, and they do tend to be more responsible breeders in general. So don't rule them out, but I think it's time for that change, Kennel Club. It really is. And although they don't control very many dogs in the grand scheme of things, when you think about how many thousands there are, if the Kennel Club makes the change, it will receive so much positive publicity. It will change the public perception of what these dogs should look like, and it will make a massive difference to dog welfare. And I think I have a lot of time for the Kennel Club. I think they do an enormous number of good things, and I think this is one way where they could really stand up and say, it's time to make a change and we are going to lead the charge. And what about if you're thinking of buying one of these dogs? I mean, you're going to go out and you're going to spend 800, 1,000, sometimes 2,000 pounds. They're not cheap, these breeds. And you're potentially going to buy a dog that is effectively already faulty goods. And you're maybe going to have to spend quite a significant amount on surgery, fixing them, or get some really, really expensive insurance premiums, because insurance companies know how much they cost. And why would you want to buy a dog that's going to struggle? But like I say, I'm a big fan of these breeds. I don't want you to not buy one if you really have set your heart on one and you are completely aware of the problems they have. But I want you to be able to choose a good one. So first of all, you have to see them with the parents. Because of the increase in popularity of these breeds, the puppy farmers are moving in and producing them in massive numbers. And you'll never see a parent with a puppy farm dog. So you have to see the parents and you want to see their noses. If the parents have got really flat faces, honestly, I know it'll break your heart, but walk away. Walk away, because that puppy you buy will almost certainly have problems. And we need to give the message to breeders that please just breed them with a nose, and then people will buy your dogs. So you have to see the parents. It's very difficult to judge. It's difficult for vets to judge, let alone just an ordinary pet owner, from what a puppy looks like when they're very young to how they're going to develop and grow when they get older. And also ask the breeders. Some breeders now are going and having this testing done at Cambridge and will come to you and say he's been tested 0. And that's great. You know, if a breeder's doing that, marvellous. If the parents have been tested 0, it doesn't necessarily follow that your puppy will definitely not have problems or develop issues, but it's a very, very good place to start. But what about if you own one of these dogs already? Maybe you've watched this video and are now thinking, gosh, I'm a bit worried, maybe my dog is struggling. Okay, so first of all, go to the Cambridge website. It's linked below. They've got some great videos on there of dogs doing what often would be considered normal breathing, and actually it's a significant symptom of a problem. Then get your dog and video them. Video them sleeping, exercising, just at rest, chilling out on the sofa, and take those videos to your vet and let your vet have a look, and we'll be able to tell you if we think there is a problem, and we'll also be able to discuss with you what we can do to fix it. Sometimes it's as simple as losing weight. These dogs are very, very vulnerable to being obese, and that makes their problems even worse. So if you've got one of these dogs, keep them slim. It will make a massive difference for them, and put them on a diet if you need to. Then the other thing we can do, like I say, is surgery. We can open the nostrils, we can amputate the soft palate, we can sort out their larynx. It's not easy, it's not without risks, and it will be a cost to you, but the difference these surgeries can make to the dogs is phenomenal. A lot of people say, oh, you know, pugs, French bulldogs, English bulldogs, they're great dogs because they're so lazy, perfect for a flat, or if you're busy, you don't have to walk them very much. These dogs aren't lazy. No dog is lazy. But if you couldn't breathe properly when you got up to a trot, what are you going to do? Are you going to go trotting and struggling, or are you going to lie on the sofa? You're going to lie on the sofa. You know, so the difference in the dog, once it can breathe, you suddenly realise he wasn't lazy. He just couldn't breathe. So educate yourself, help your dog to have a wonderful life. So that's it for the video. I hope you can understand that I'm not against these breeds. I think a lot of them are lovely little dogs, but We have to help them. We can't carry on producing dogs that literally struggle to breathe. And the solution is so simple. We just need to give them a nose. And when you say it like that, it sounds so obvious. If you don't have a nose, how are you going to breathe? It's like the joke, how my dog has no nose, how does he smell? The question should be, my dog has no nose, how does he breathe? That's all they need. They just need a nose. Right, thank you very much everyone for sticking with me on this video. I'm sorry if it got a bit ranty, but it's something that I feel incredibly passionate about, and I think it's going to be so easy to make the change if we can. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!